Stop for a moment. Look into your pocket. That money you carry, that paper note, the numbers in your bank app, the crypto wallet on your phone. Do they really mean anything? Or is it all just a story we agreed to believe together? Strange, isn't it? A mere idea can move the world. That's the grandest trick of human history. Money. But this video isn't really about money. It's about people. Because the evolution of money is, at its core, the evolution of how we define value. Let's rewind a few thousand years. There was no bank, no king's mint, no crypto wallets. People lived by exchanging what they had. You're a shepherd, I'm a fisher. You trade your wool for my fish. That sounds like economics in its purest form. Or so we think. Soon, a problem emerges. My fish is fresh today, but I don't need wool until next week, or maybe I don't want wool at all. I want salt instead. Then the system breaks down. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants. Both parties must want what the other has at the same moment. Life rarely lines up that perfectly, right? So human brains began to say, we need something that makes exchange easier, something everyone accepts. And that thought seeded the very first forms of money. The earliest currencies weren't metal coins. They were shells, stones, salt, rice, even giant carved discs on some Pacific islands. All of them served the same function, to stand in for value. Why those objects? Because human minds need to tangibilize value. To truly believe something is worth anything, we like to touch it, see it, hold it. So the earliest forms of value were tangible, scarce, and durable. They had the exact qualities our brains equate with worth. That's why gold has held such a grip on human imagination for millennia. It's rare, it doesn't tarnish, it shines. And our minds have long associated those qualities with permanence and power. From day one, money functioned as a material embodiment of trust. As societies grew, trade routes expanded and communities became larger. Suddenly, the question became, who do you trust? In a tiny village, everyone knows each other. But in a city of thousands, many are strangers. So states and rulers stepped in. Kings stamped their symbols on coins, empires printed seals on currency. It was a message. This coin is backed by my authority. Trust me. Money had become more than a medium of exchange. It was a language of power. A currency's value became a reflection of the state's credibility. And because of that, wars were fought not just for land, but for control over monetary systems. Whoever controls money controls behavior. But trust is fragile. Once shaken, an entire system can collapse. As trade scaled up, carrying heaps of metal became dangerous. Caravans, ships, pirates, risk was everywhere. Merchants began depositing their gold in secure vaults. In return, they received paper receipts, claims to that gold. Over time, those receipts started to circulate as money. In other words, a promise on paper became a stand-in for metal, and if everyone agreed to accept the paper, it functioned like real currency. This marked the moment value went abstract. It wasn't the physical metal anymore. It was the collective belief in that paper people realized. If a piece of paper can represent gold, then what really matters is the shared belief behind it. And with that, money transformed into a social agreement, a collective illusion with enormous power. As the psychologist Carl Menninger put it, belief is perhaps the most valuable currency of the human mind. Banks grew, nation-states consolidated power, and governments took control of monetary systems. Currency became a matter of policy and politics, not just commodity. Currency detached from gold and became fiat money, its value derived from government decree and public confidence. When, in 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility to gold, the modern era truly began. From that point on, money's value rested less on metal and more on faith, faith in institutions, in the state, in systemic stability. For many of us, this is an odd psychological shift. We're being asked to trust in abstraction. And while we do, our brains are still wired for something far more tangible. The 1980s and onward introduced electronic transfers, credit cards, and later internet banking. Money became numbers in databases. The physical form shrank to almost nothing. How did that impact our brains? Scientists have studied this. An MIT study showed that when people pay with plastic rather than cash, their brain's pain center reacts less. In other words, spending invisible money hurts less psychologically. So digital money made us more impulsive, more willing to part with value. Paradoxically, the more intangible money became, the less emotional loss we felt when spending it. This psychological gap has huge consequences for consumption, debt, and financial behavior. Then came 2008. The global financial crisis exposed the fragility of trust-based systems. Banks teetered, stocks plummeted, people lost their homes and their faith in institutions. The crisis sparked a profound question. If trust fails, what do we have left to rely on? Enter 2009 and an obscure white paper. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Satoshi Nakamoto, an anonymous name that changed everything, proposed a system where trust does not reside in people or institutions, but in mathematics. Blockchain, the underlying technology, created a ledger that was verifiable by anyone and immutable. Trust in this model is encoded. This was more than a technical tool. It was a philosophical statement. Could code replace centralized faith? Cryptocurrencies did not just offer a new form of money. They challenged what value means. Suddenly, a tweet, a digital artwork, or even an in-game item could hold immense monetary value. Why does that happen? Because value is generated by collective belief. If enough people agree a thing is valuable, it becomes valuable. We've been repeating this cycle for millennia. Shells, gold, paper, now code. The object changes, the human psychology does not. As behavioral economist Dan Ariely noted, humans are not rational. We invest in things we want to believe in. Bubbles form, crashes happen, yet the system persists, because at its core, finance is social psychology. Why do we keep making irrational financial decisions? Because we don't think in purely logical terms when it comes to money. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed us how our cognitive biases shape economic behavior. Loss aversion. Losses hurt far more than gains please us. That's why people hold on to losing stocks in the hope of a rebound, or why they avoid certain gains because the risk seems too high. Money touches our oldest drives: fear, status, belonging. Those are older than markets, older than currencies. So when we ask, why did they do that? The real answer is, our brains were designed for survival, not for spreadsheets. What's next? Will AI define value? Will trust become tokenized into new forms? Perhaps future wealth won't be measured by how many assets you own, but by how much trust, reputation, and social capital you command. Or maybe value will shift toward attention, knowledge, and meaningful experience. Whatever the future holds, one truth persists. Value lives in the human mind. Money is its reflection. So the final question remains: are we shaping money, or is money shaping us?